Welcome to Sitcom Showdown, a podcast that reviews classic sitcom episodes and inducts them into our very own Hall of Fame. As usual, one of us has chosen a sitcom episode and the other guy has no idea what it's going to be. Will they already know it? Will they love it? Can they be convinced that it's worthy? Let's find out on the Sitcom Showdown. Hello again and welcome back to Sitcom Showdown. I think this will be episode 22, won't it, Steve?
Yeah.
So we're going to do an episode of The Goodies, which you'd be very familiar with.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're more than very familiar with.
Oh yeah, very much so. Perhaps we can talk about that later. But this episode is called Scoutrageous. And I think I warned you around this time last year that this episode was going to come up. Yes. So should I just launch into talking about The Goodies?
Yep.
So this is a British sitcom that went out on the BBC. And this particular episode aired on 22nd of November 1977. So it's 40 years and a couple of months old.
So Series 7 went out on the BBC.
Yep, and Series 8 went out on the BBC. And Series 9, there was a gap of a couple of years, and that went out on what we'll just call ITV.
Right, that was the one that
But
went
I think
out.
it was LWT, London Weekend Television.
Right, I'm with you.
But it still holds up today, but I've got to still make that argument and hope it holds up. So I won't be presumptuous. The Goodies, for those who don't know, and there's not much of a situation to describe in this particular situation comedy. It started in 1970. They did 9 series over 11 years. But the very basic structure of The Goodies is that there's this trio of young men, The Goodies, and they open up what we could call a problem-solving agency with the motto, "We do anything, anytime." So that's pretty broad, man. You can hire them to do anything. So you might hire them to do some pet sitting or some dog walking. But chances are they're going to turn your cute little pet into a giant monster that's going to terrorise London.
Yes, they don't advertise that, though.
They don't advertise that. These things just happen. Yeah, so there you go. I mean, there's been episodes set in ancient Rome.
Kong.
Yeah, Kit and Kong. Brian the Giant Cod. Frank and Fido. They've had episodes set in ancient Rome, as I just said. They've had episodes set in the future, as it was then. It was set in 2001, which is 17 years ago now. So basically, literally, anything can happen in this show, and it often does. They've been to the moon and were kidnapped by intelligent rabbits who are living on the moon. So you see where I'm coming from here. Yeah. It's very different to The Office or Seinfeld, that sort of gear.
A little less grounded.
Yeah. So it's surreal comedy. It's very visual as well and prop heavy. But there's also great dialogue and they've got all this very well observed satire. So, keep a lookout for references and things. So half of it's timeless in a way that Mr. Bean is timeless, which is all the running around and the visual comedy. And it appeals to children. And half is references that are very based in the 1970s. So if you weren't living in Britain in the 1970s, there'll be a few things you won't grasp.
Yeah, well.
So that's the range of things you're looking at. It's just an awesome show. So you've got the three guys and they used their real names, which is very unusual. I know Jerry Seinfeld used his real name, but none of the other characters used their real names.
Just simplifies things.
It does a bit when you see them in the street. So Bill, he's a sort of short, hairy, musician-y, very casual, anti-establishment, randy, sort of scruffy, barbarian-y sort of chappy, who's also a bird-watching nature enthusiast and all that sort of thing. So he's the wild man.
Not this character, though, surely.
Oh, yeah, no, in The Goodies, believe it or
Was
not. He? Yeah, at least once every season he's doing some sort of bird-watching thing. They had the episode with the dodo.
Right.
And all that sort of stuff. And, there's lots of bird references.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll take your word for
it. Hey. You've got Tim Brooke Taylor, with a hyphenated name, who plays the posh boy, the public school chap who wears the Union Jack waistcoat and is very Rule Britannia. The Queen is fantastic, etc. So you've got the two classes there, which helps for British comedy. And you've got Graham, who's above class concerns because he's got his mind on intellectual pursuits and he's, I put down scientist, but really he's more of a mad inventor.
Yes. He does go off the rails from time to time.
Oh yeah, like building robots and creating snooze, if you remember the snooze episode and all these sorts of things. So basically that allows you to get anything done. So Graham can basically invent stuff. and that can drive the plot or get them out of hot water.
Or get them into hot water.
Or get them into hot water. And some people have said that it's like a live-action cartoon because all these crazy things happen. You know, so you'll watch Roadrunner and they'll go off the end of the cliff and Wile E. Coyote will hang around there and drop down. They do a lot of things that are similar but live-action. So let's move on to who they are in real life as opposed to the characters on the show. So Tim Brooke-Taylor, all of these guys have a background with the Monty Python team in that they went to university together, you know, different years. And Tim, for example, was president of Footlights at Cambridge. And so in that era, certain people were in the gang. And before the Goodies came around in 1970, they were doing sketch shows like At Last, the 1948 show, and another sketch show called Broaden Your Mind, which had members of the Python team and members of the Goodies team and all that. But Timbo's also been in other sitcoms. So he was in Me and My Girl. Do you know that one?
I remember seeing it. He had a teenage daughter or something like that, was it?
Oh, well, he works with the guy who had the teenage daughter, which was Richard O'Sullivan.
Richard O'Sullivan.
Robin's Nest and Man About the House.
There you go.
That was, I think it was 84 to 88 that was on. Yes. Bill Oddie. So when the other guys were doing Python and, the pre-Python, pre-Goodies stuff, Bill had left uni and he was a musician who had a recording contract with EMI and all this. And he was recording with George Martin of Beatles fame while he was doing with the Goodies and stuff. So I can imagine Bill would have just been, you know, going out to the jazz club and hanging out with Hendrix and having beers with Paul McCartney.
So how did he get wrapped into it then?
Oh, well, he was part of that whole university scene as well with the comedy and all that. But he's your song and dance man, you know, rather than your writer. Mm-hmm. Although he did write the Goodies. Anyway, but after the Goodies, he went on to mainly do his nature shows and nature books and bird watching. So he hosted Springwatch for years and he's had his own shows. And he also did stuff like there was a Saturday morning show called Saturday Banana that he did. And it was a kids show on Saturday TV where, you know, you have your guests on and it's the usual sort of...
Where does the banana come into?
I don't know. It was supposed to be called something else.
Like a banana?
No, it was Saturday... Something else that sounds sort of similar to banana, but some people at somewhere along the line had heard it wrong and written it down as Saturday Banana, and they thought, we'll keep that. And Graham Garden, of course, he was part of that whole crew, did the same sketch shows, the same uni stuff, but he's really good at writing, and so he's written for a lot of sitcoms like Doctor in the House and many others, and they wrote a series called Astronauts, which was another sitcom. But he's very good at radio shows. So they started a radio show in 1972 called I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue, and it's still going today. Yeah. 2 series a year. And Graham came up with a format for other radio shows and things. And he's done a million other projects. And they all used to do stage acting and all that sort of stuff. And of course, the Goodies trio did Banana Man as well.
Yeah, and they're all still with us.
And they're all still with us, thank goodness. Yeah, they're all in their mid-70s now, but still working and still doing very, very well. So... personal background to watching this. Well, I'll hand that one over to you, Steve.
Well, this was the classic ABC TV lineup during weekdays was the Goodies and then Doctor Who. Yeah. And it was that way for years, so I just watched it whenever it was on and they repeated it, watched it. And
they repeated it and repeated it.
I kept watching
it. Repeated it.
Yeah. So I'd say there's large chunks of the Goodies which I've watched over and over and over, and then there's other bits that I've probably never seen.
Yeah, you'd be bang on. And certain episodes they wouldn't have played because the ABC would have said, no, we're not doing that one. And the ABC were known for cutting a lot of stuff out. Well, not a lot of stuff out of the Goodies, but I meant to say a lot of stuff that didn't get cut out in Britain. Because it was an adult show that went out at, you know, anywhere around 10 o'clock at night in Britain. Mm. But ABC made a few cuts and put it out for kids on weekday afternoons.
Yeah. So,
and it works both ways.
Whereas in England, you'd see a flash on the screen, which would be a picture of a topless woman. You wouldn't see that in Australia.
No. And they might say the word bloody, which they'd either cut out or, you know, they'd have it in as ruddy or something like that.
Yeah.
And they cut out other references.
What's your background to it?
Well, exactly the same. So we were just raised on it. I mean, I'm sure by the time, you know, we could watch TV, it was just being played in the afternoons with Doctor Who, as you say, and Danger Mouse and Banana Man and all sorts of other things.
Yeah, but you don't have the gaps in it that I have. You've watched.
Oh,
watched them all.
Yeah, I watched them all. But this is the thing about the goodies, is it's not all been released on DVD. There's 75 episodes. They've only released 30-odd on DVD. Bugger all were released on VHS, so it's been fans taping it off things and swapping them with each other and keeping it alive. And in fact, last year, Network DVD, God bless them, they're great, was supposed to release a box set, finally, after all these years. Didn't come out, so we're hoping it's going to come out this year. And then we'll finally have the whole box set on DVD. I'm so happy. Anyway, let's go off and watch Scoutrageous, and then we'll be back.
Yep.
Goodies! Goodies! Take a little good advice. Try a trip to paradise. It's not hard to find. You got it on your mind. You can't pretend it wouldn't be nice. It's whatever turns you on. Goodies!
Bob a job, Chief.
Who are you?
Never mind who we are. Bob a job.
Only allowing for inflation and the present economic climate? Shall we say 500 quid a job, eh?
Go away, I'm a scout too. I don't want a job done, thank you.
No, Mush, you don't appear to understand. You give us the money, or else we do the job.
Now listen, little boys, I am Brown Owl.
Oh, hoot, hoot. And no doubt that is Brown Owl's nicely proportioned hat.
Yeah, what a nice hat it is, isn't it?
Oh, thank you, I'm glad you like it. I'd rather you didn't touch
Yes,
it.
I'm sure you would. I mean, one must take such care of such a hat. I mean, what a pity it would be, for example, were it to catch fire.
I'm sorry?
I mean, were I to accidentally rub these two sticks together for too long.
Not near my hat!
Oh, look, what a simply splendid scout staff.
Oh, please don't touch my staff.
Here, wouldn't it be a tragedy if this staff got whittled?
Whittled.
Ah, we Boy Scouts love whittling, and one slip of an ill-disciplined penknife, such as this...
Oh, what a nice penknife.
Yeah, with many varied and useful blades, yet strangely uncontrollable. This blade here for slicing woggles. And this, the whittling blade. See how it whittles. Whittle, whittle, with a will of its own, whittling away on its own accord. Oh, dear.
All right, you can have a bob.
A bob? Don't make me laugh. Oh, dear.
Okay, you can have Graham's computer and Bill's binoculars. They won't miss them.
Oh, well,
Oh, wouldn't they?
No.
Well, whose are these shoes, I wonder?
Oh, not my shoes, please.
My, they shine. They shine so that you can see your face in them.
Oh, please.
There's your face in it. I'll tell you what, as a little favour, as one last special job, I'll give them a nice little finish
Oh, thank you.
with my Brillo pad.
No, please! No! All right! Not my shiny shoes. I'll give you whatever you want.
500 quid.
You're on.
Job done.
Who were those masked scouts?
Goodies are coming for you and you and you.
So we're back, and we've just watched the goodies episode, Scoutrageous.
Hey,
Yeah, that was eventful.
it was. They cram a lot in.
So I'll quickly run through it. Now, Bill and Graham, they're just sitting around the office / home because they live where they work and work where they live, and they're casually reading magazines when Tim breezes in, and he sort of goes straight past them saying, "I'm late," and he walks into another room from which the other two lads can hear him changing clothes, changing outfits, and it includes some odd sounds.
Yes.
And they're a bit confused. So they discuss this behaviour by Tim, which they note happens every Thursday afternoon at 6:45. So Tim comes back out wearing a big, what I'd call a flasher's overcoat, and he seems to have a bin bag on his head, a black big bin bag, and his shoes with his socks and sock suspenders, but bare legs.
It's a Frank Spencer.
It is a bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh. Anyway, so he is leaving again, saying, "I'm just going for a walk." And so Bill and Greybags decide that now, after 16 years of seeing Tim do this every
This was very funny.
Thursday afternoon, they're going to follow him and solve the mystery because they think whatever he's up to, it's clearly an act of shame.
Not wrong.
So Bill and Graham follow Tim, and they discover he's secretly going to scout meetings. and he is in fact a scout. So they enter the scout hall and confront Tim, the patrol leader, and they, all Tim's band of scout lads are there, but they're mainly bearded old men. So they're
septuagenarians.
Yeah. Bill and Graham make fun of Tim, but Tim stands up for his troop of scouts, and he's saying things along the lines of, "Listen, you show me one young person who has the moral fortitude and the courage to wear a scout uniform, and I'll have him in my patrol."
Yep.
So Bill immediately says, "I'm young, I have courage." And he goes, "All right, well, if you want to join up, you two go out to the other room there. There's some togs in there, and put on your scout uniforms and come back in." And basically they join the patrol. But from here, it kicks into high gear. And so Bill and Graham very shortly become masterful scouts with shirts full of badges and all these sorts of things in record time by doing some unethical things. Anyway, Tim discovers they've been doing it in a very unethical way with some very dodgy behaviour. But to be fair, they worked very hard at it.
Well, Tim's been at it for 16 years and hasn't got a single badge, which makes you doubt his motivation or enthusiasm or something, and then they go out and smash half a dozen badges in an afternoon.
Yeah.
But not in the most...
not scout-like way.
Unscout-like way, yeah.
Anyway, so they're doing this even to the point of making up new badges just so they can go out and get badges. And they're not exactly doing it by the Scout handbook. And they're taking the scouting movement in some very worrying directions here.
Yes.
So Tim throws them out of his patrol. And in retaliation, Bill and Graham go rogue. They start up their own patrol, and they're terrorising London in pursuit of their rebel scouting aims, which start with £1,000 a job week, every week.
Yep.
Extorting money from people around the place as the masked scouts. And we've left out a whole bit about when they put their scouting uniforms on. It's just hilarious because they go out and then they come back in these scout uniforms, and Bill's got these enormous big flappy shorts on and Graham's got these tiny little shorts on, so they mixed up the shorts. And Bill's enormous hat, which comes down over his eyes. Anyway, so they're now operating, Bill and Graham are, as the masked scouts. And they're basically just running extortion rackets where they say, as they said to Tim, no, you don't understand. It's not, £1,000 and we do the job. It's give us the £1,000 or else we'll do the job. And they use their scouting skills, which I know mainly consists of knot tying and rubbing two sticks together to start a fire.
This was just hilarious. Like they're tying, they go to the zoo and they hold the zoo up and they've tied the giraffe's neck in a knot.
And the elephant's trunk.
Yeah.
And one of the pythons.
Some soldiers, some guards there or something with these rifles.
They're holding up the armoured cash vehicle.
Yeah. They pull the barrels of the rifle apart and they tie it into a knot.
Just like Bugs Bunny does to Elmer Fudd.
It's genius.
Oh. So in retaliation, they've gone rogue and all this sort of stuff, and things are getting out of hand in London, so the government outlaws the scouting movement. Oh, man. Because they're going for their world domination badge, but that's coming up in a bit. So the government sends police teams out to round up all the scouts, and then you cut to this footage of vans full of rozzers herding all these small children and scuffling with them, trying to do all that, which is always pretty cool. And they appoint a very scary man to be the Scout Finder General. So it wasn't the witch...
I said he resembled a Nazi.
He did, he really did. Anyway, so the Scout Finder General is going to hunt down and interrogate any remaining scouts that weren't rounded up in the first purges. Tim doesn't know Bill and Graham, meanwhile, are the masked scouts, even though he gets directly held up by them personally.
Yep.
Which is another great scene. So he just thinks there's some masked scouts out there. Tim is arrested after Graham and Bill turn him in to the authorities as being a scout, and they visit Tim to give him the tip-off.
They dobbed him in.
They dobbed him in, yes. Well put. And he says, the police don't know where I am. What do you mean they're coming around to arrest me? And they go, oh, well, that's not quite right, Tim, because we told them.
Yeah.
Well, why'd you do that? Oh, so they know where you are. Anyway, they basically say, listen, buddy, you kicked us out of the Scouts just when we were getting into it, so this is your comeuppance, and this is what's happening to you. Anyway, Tim's been arrested, and him and his troop are being interrogated by the Scoutmaster General. It's brilliant. So he turns on the scouting movement. He turns his back on his beloved Scouts, and he joins the Salvation Army instead, because it's the one organisation left that upholds decency and clean living like the Scouts used to.
Yep.
But it's his only option left. And he very quickly rises through the ranks. And
very quickly.
He becomes a field marshal in the Salvation Army, Salvation Air Force and Salvation Navy. And so then he's got his group of Salvation Army ladies who he's training up.
Yeah.
And then he convinces the Scout Finder General to let him go after the masked Scouts.
And like the SEAL team equivalent of the Salvation Army.
Oh, man.
Salvation Army ladies.
Yeah. Anyway, it all ends up with Timbo and his Salvation Army having cornered the masked Scouts in a field, and they're surrounding them with tanks and machine gunners and artillery, and, there's bombs being dropped all over the place, and they're rounding up the masked Scouts. And Bill and Graham, or the masked Scout plus one as they're called, trapped in this crater, and Tim's holding them at gunpoint from some sort of armoured vehicle, and he says, "All right, you two masked Scouts, take off your masks." And he's shocked and appalled to find out that it's Bill and Graham. He can't believe it. But he's got them banged to rights, and Tim says, "I just can't believe it was you two all along." And Bill sort of, with puppy dog or innocent child eyes, looks up and goes, "No, it wasn't us." And Tim says, "Oh, well, that's all right then. If it had been you, I'd have been very cross. All right, come on, ladies, off we go."
Yep.
And they turn around and start backing off, and that's the end of the episode. But as Tim looks back over his shoulder, as he's just twigged that they fibbed to him.
Yeah, they told him his truth.
Yeah, but because he's such an honest, upstanding man, he doesn't think people would lie. No, he was lying to the Scoutmaster General.
Yeah.
So that's the basics of the episode. As I fold my notes, I always traditionally like to ask you to go first.
Okay, I'll pick a few things out then.
Cool.
The scene where Bill and Graham are following Tim to his scout meeting, and he's scuttering moving from shadow to shadow and moving about almost like a rat, and
yeah, he's got his little paws in front of him, sort of.
Yep.
Tiptoeing about.
Then other scouts, they've got their hats covered up.
The bin bags.
And they've got the coat on just like him. They're skittering about in the shadows and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So they're obviously got something in mind that they're referencing there, but it was a bit lost on me, but it's very, very funny. And also the bit where Bill and Graham are out doing their badges in the afternoon, and they're getting the help the old ladies across the road badge. That's like something out of a Benny Hill skit. They're just... they've got their scout sticks and they're playing pool, like hitting the ladies, hitting the ladies across like they were a pool ball, backwards and forwards, and then they're like whacking them with sticks. And there's one in a wheelchair, and Bill like just launches her in her wheelchair across the road, and she narrowly escapes getting hit by a car. And it's just so funny.
Yeah. Cruelty to old ladies by Boy Scouts.
The flower pressing badge. They walk up to this person who's got a flower cart, which must have been a thing in those days. They just grab a whole load, throw them on the floor,
stamp
on the
all
street,
over them.
and they're stamping up and down on them.
Yep.
It's just hilarious.
Oh,
but they turn so quickly.
Oh yeah, they're pretty evil, aren't they?
They are.
And that's before they even got chucked out.
Yeah, that was before they got chucked out.
Oh man.
What else have I got? There's this bit where Bill and Graham come over the crest of a hill, and you hear the William Tell overture playing. And Bill neighs like a horse. This is obviously... it's like the Lone...
It is a Lone Ranger.
It's a Lone Ranger thing. Then I'm also getting hints of Blackadder. Where Baldrick becomes the horse for Blackadder as he's the highwayman.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
That was just... I love that. And they also got hints of Batman and Robin.
Oh, really?
Throughout this.
Oh, because Graham does have a cape on. He's got his blue cape on as part of his disguise.
And cape, and you got the two of them, and in one scene they get picked up by this big red car that's kind of Batmobile proportions, and they go flying off on that. And then later on they've got their own secret hideout. And what happens? Bill comes in and he
goes dib dib dib
dib dib dib, dob dob dob. You've been late. You're late. Something like that. And they're in the secret hideout. That's pretty funny. The bit where Tim joins the salvos, and then the next thing you know he's running them. But the funny thing is, just as they take the scouting things like tying the knots, and turn them in that into a series of jokes. They do the same thing with the salvos. So the signal corps is this lady who's got a radio headset, but she's praying about something.
I want this message sent off immediately, and you think she's going to go dee 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 dee, but no, she just starts
puts her hands
praying
together
it right up to God.
Then some of them are on night manoeuvres, which is basically doing a soup kitchen. But then they take that, they ramp that right up to the point where they're driving tanks and firing machine guns and all this sort of stuff towards the end as well. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's some of the things that I'd pulled out.
Yeah, they do pack a lot in, so there's a lot to go through. But I just really love it when they visit Tim, the Master Scouts, and he doesn't know who they are, and they go, Bob, a job. Oh, no, thank you. I don't want a job done. I'm a scout myself. I don't need your services. Thank you very much. Goodbye. And they go, no, you don't understand.
Pay up or we'll do the job.
Yeah.
Do a job on you.
Exactly. And then they intimidate him by whittling his scout staff and slicing up his woggle, setting fire to his hat.
Burn his hat, but of course they're not going to do it by pouring lighter fluid on it or something like that. They're going to get 2 sticks out.
And do it scout style.
Yeah.
Yes, and then they get Tim to give them 500 quid. And I also like that every time they rumble someone for the money, they get their rubber ink stamp out and go on their forehead with a big tick, and the stamp says job done and a big tick.
But he gives them the money, and they don't say, right, we're not going to follow through on our threats.
No.
They have completely destroyed his stick. It's lying in, it's just a pile of splinters on the floor. And his hat's burning on the table. It's terrible.
They had to teach him a lesson. Anyway, that whole scene where they're intimidating Tim is bloody fantastic. Graham gets spaghetti dumped on his head, which is always good, and they always find an excuse to do it because one of the running gags through the goodies is that Tim gets baked beans dumped on his head all the time. So yeah, the montage is basically the montage of them earning all the badges, including the Wig Spotters badge, and then the montage of them rumbling everyone, like holding up the zoo and the bank and all the other things as well. But needless to say, they do pack a hell of a lot of stuff in here. So just to summarise why I think it should go into the Hall of Fame, this episode in particular is so quick, and it's a mix of all these different types of humour. So you've got these very expensive, elaborate prop visual gags, like having to build an elephant's head to be on screen for half a second, and the giraffe's head, and they're tying lampposts in knots, and so you have to create a lamppost that's being tied in a knot, and all these sorts of... It's a very expensive show. But you've got all of that visual humour, which works no matter what age you are. It's very quick. They've got puns. They've got references. It's a pretty good script. And they also satirise everything. So here they've done McCarthyism with the Office of Scout-like Activities and the Scout Finder General, which must be a... in Blackadder, did they not have the Witchfinder General in the first series? And he was... What was his name? Matthew Robinson or something? I don't know.
Ringing a bell.
Yeah. So at the same time, it's a totally off-the-wall fun romp as being a social critique. Yep. And that's where I stand. I think it's just super fun. Now, Bill's always laughing and smiling and doing all these things while being evil, and it's just quick and fun and nice, even though they were doing some reprehensible things.
In the name of scouting.
Yeah, exactly. So, yep, I'm putting that one up for the Hall of Fame. But you've got some other points here before you deliberate. What have you got there, Steve?
It's a jolly fun romp from start to finish. And I love the way they took the Scouty things and the Salvation Army things and turned them into outrageous jokes. Yes, I think it can go into the Hall of Fame.
All
no
right.
problems at all.
Oh, brilliant. I'm glad to hear that.
Iconic, some of that. World Domination badge.
Oh, yeah.
Several things like
and the
that.
atom bomb, yeah. And we managed to get through all of that without me plugging the Goodies podcast. Isn't that great?
Oh, you can plug it now.
Oh, there's not much point. But if anyone does want to listen and you are a fan of the Goodies, prior to doing this podcast, I used to do the Goodies podcast. We did over 150 episodes. So there we go. I'm very pleased to hear that you're allowing it to go through to the Hall of Fame. So yeah, what a start to 2018. We've got News Radio in and the Goodies in.
Yeah, it's a good start.
Thanks for joining us. And again, coming up in the outro is all the ways you can contact us. Yes. And that's mainly Twitter, Facebook, and email.
If we had some listener feedback during 2018, that'd be pretty awesome.
One day, don't worry, one day it will happen. But in the meantime, we'll go off and start working on more episodes. So, ta-ta from me, everybody.
See you, everyone. Bye.
Join us next time on Sitcom Showdown when we'll be putting another 5-star episode under the microscope. And in the meantime, you can contact us with feedback on Facebook, Twitter @Sitcom Showdown, or by email sitcomshowdown@gmail.com.